and foremost is, I would say, some of our Asian cultures, and again, I'm not saying all, some have this fatalistic, sad kind of view on life. Okay, so I'm flipping that. I'm saying maintain an optimistic outlook on life. We didn't come here all to suffer and grind and fail and all that. Yeah, those things will come along the way for the ride, but our main purpose is we have to be happy. We have to be optimistic that things will be
So
good.
we know just a pet background, to verify with you. Are you kind of referring to a very, very common and a big view about the suffering discussed in the Buddhism, for example, which is a huge culture in Asia?
That is one of them. There are others too, right, which kind of talk about um, that this human life is fraught with sadness and tragedy and so on and so forth. And
Okay.
therefore one has to somehow not be influenced by that. And my point is, let's not take it that way. Let's assume that the default is a happiness state, and
You are
the sad state
very
is
entrepreneur.
yeah, because you will be faced with so many challenges, right? And if we have this, if we are faced by some of these outcomes, you have to always look at the glass as three-quarter full, not even half full. It's three-quarter full. That's the only way to do this, right?
Isn't there one too of a desire is the source of all pain?
Now you're talking.
Very tough to be entrepreneurial and try to reach higher. That's just why I'm unhappy.
Yeah. And it all depends on what kind of desire you qualify it. But anyway, let's not go there, right? And then the second one is, and I'm example of that. I have to curb my tendency, and I recommend this to everybody. We tend to be self-effacing, meaning we downplay who we are, right? And anytime we kind of overawed, oh, this so and so is so much better than me, so much whatever better than, and therefore somehow belittling ourselves. I think that is something we need to, as Asians, we have to be aware of, that we have that kind of natural tendency. And even how we are brought up, that, we're always told that we're not as good enough as the neighbor's son or neighbor's daughter, right? Our grades are not better or as good, or we didn't achieve as much as we should have. That programming goes on from childhood onwards. You hear it. Watch it in movies, you watch it everywhere. It's like nonstop drum that you're never good enough, right? And that takes a toll. I'll just give you a personal example. And again, this is for just for giving you some guidance here. So there was a physics test. This is during my community college days in Bombay, St. Xavier's College. And I was particularly mortified about physics. And they were a very tough instructor who used to talk very fast and so on. And I had told my aunt, I had lost my parents at a young age, so my aunt was the closest relative. And I told her I'm going for this test, and I just hope I do well. So I went for the test, came back, and she was very curious. How did it go? How did it go? I said, I don't know. I'll find out the results. I thought I had done well, very well, in fact. So 2 days later, he was giving out the results. And in India, we don't have grades, we have points. So it's called marks. So it was a 20-mark test. And he said, well, I'm going to do the unthinkable this time. I'm going to give somebody 20 on 20. So I was hoping and wishing and praying it was me. And he announced somebody else's name. My heart just fell. Oh my God. Even I thought, it was I was so psyched about it, so scared about it, and I was doing well, and I should have got. And then everybody was clapping for the guy, and he made that guy stand up and all that and so on. Okay. So then he said, but wait, there's more. This is almost like a TV commercial. He said, I never thought I would do something like this in my life, he said. And he said, I'm going to give somebody 21. I've given somebody 21 and 20.
Okay, extra point.
Extra point. And he announced my name. And then he came up to me and hugged me and did all this. And he said, I never thought I would do this in my entire life. And I'm doing this. So I was so thrilled. I was so happy. And I went home. Right. And my aunt saw my excitement. And I said, she said, how did God go? I said, I got 21 points on 20. So she first heard it as 20 on 21. Okay. She said, what happened to the 1 point? I said, no, no, it's actually the other way. It's 21 on 20. She said, oh, how come it's not 25? Okay, so this is how we were brought up, where nothing was good enough. Anything we did was not good enough because somebody else was doing better in some way or the other. And even doesn't matter if somebody else is 10 years older than I, or is I'm not a dancer, but somebody's doing it in dance. You are never as good. This is how we were kind of, and that actually is a programming that affects us. It affects us for life. It's frankly a scar that is very hard to kind of take out of the system. And the fact that I'm remembering something from so many years ago just says that, right? Anyway, coming back to your question, I rely less on groupthink. So we tend to kind of, because of our cultural upbringing, we are scared to express our own view and opinions. If three people are saying one way, we'll also, yeah, that's the way it is. Even though inside we may be harboring a countervailing view, right? And we want to be also open to new ideas. Sometimes we culturally can be rigid in our thinking, right? And we can have firm opinions, and we should be prepared to change. And that sometimes doesn't come easy culturally again. And that there can be more than one right answer is not something we easily accept. Oh, there's only one answer. There's only one answer, right? And then now is another cultural trait, which is if let's say I have an issue with somebody, instead of directly talking with that somebody, confronting them directly, I end up talking behind their back. I talk to other people who really cannot help the situation. But somehow I feel I did I went, it's out of my system. So this is, again, I believe maybe it's true in other cultures, but I find that more in our people of Asian heritage, right? And then also many times we're scared to approach somebody for mentorship. Okay, we feel either that person might think little of us if we do that, or what if they refuse? Then I'm going to be shattered, right? That kind of feeling of that, right? And then if there's an opportunity to network, we shouldn't be shy. We shouldn't just take a glass of soda and stand on the side. Come into the circle, be part of the action, as opposed to reading a poster at the trade show or something, or instead use the opportunity to interact, right? And then again, I shouldn't generalize, but there is a tendency to indulge in idle gossip, and we should kind of refrain from that, is my guidance to young Indian professionals or young Asian professionals.
Did you say, Vinod, could you clarify about, I wasn't clear about the point. Could you clarify again?
No, I was saying that many times kind of indulging in gossip as opposed to, okay, because somehow it's comforting, as opposed to confronting the issue, just kind of shoot the breeze with things which don't really matter. Right?
Okay, yeah.
Especially when there's an opportunity to network, you can use that for career advancement. You can use it for all good things, but not just to kind of talk about either some actress or somebody's life or some politician's life. Who cares? Let's talk about us, right? Yeah. So first and foremost is being open to new ideas, because it's not that only engineers have ideas, right? Salespeople, even our administrative assistant, HR, anybody could have ideas, not limited to, right? And I cannot be rigid in my thinking just because I've had a scientific training or engineering education that there's only one way to do it. There could be n different ways, right? And there is, as I said, unlike in the technical realm where you reduce an equation and you get an answer, in the soft world, right, of human interaction and business, there's more than one way to do it, and there's more than one right answer. And there could be a right answer today that is not right tomorrow. Whereas in engineering, the right answer today is the right answer for all time. Right?
Yeah.
So kind of being sensitive and cognizant of that and accepting of that, because many times you can't accept. You say, wait a minute, didn't I do this way 10 years ago? It didn't work there. Why should it work here now? Right? And then, so you get into that mode that I have been to that movie and I know how that movie pans out. Let's not do it this way because it didn't work then. But it may not have worked then for other reasons that are not applicable, right? But anyway, right? And then this is one which I did several times, and sometimes I have take a lot of heat for it. you have to be prepared to stake your career and your reputation for what you believe is a just cause. Okay, that is something that doesn't come easy. Because firstly, you might be told, hey, wait a minute, just because you think it is the biggest thing, doesn't make it the biggest thing. That's one. Second, if you're going to really stand up, is that the right hill to fight for? Is that the right hill to salute the flag on, to use a marine analogy or defense forces analogy, right? Is that the right, do you want to defend that hill? Do you want to salute that flag? I have been used those words exactly when I was pushing for something that was not what was the prevailing direction from top down, and not in the current form, in a different form, right? And so at that point, you should be prepared to, if necessary, put the badge on the table, which is what I did in that one occasion, right?
Mm.
So these are things that they don't teach you in engineering school and so on, but it's one of those things where if you believe fundamentally that it is not right, it's going against your integrity, that this is not what we are all about, and this, you have to distance yourself from that situation, right? And I say this, which I know sounds very tacky, but I'll say it. The world is not black and white. It actually besides shades of gray, there's a whole lot of color. And this going back to binary answers of yes and no and things like that. Or there's only one way or the highway. All that is nonsense. There's any n ways to do something, right? And yeah, other things we touched upon about being optimistic and so on. As an entrepreneur, as a business person, you have to be optimistic. Even as the worst gloom and doom, even the numbers look ugly, you got to put a nice smiley disposition and look at it like, oh, this is just an eclipse, solar eclipse, even though it masks the sun, it's only 7 minutes. There's so many other days of sunshine, right? So let's not obsess on the eclipse. Let's talk about what we can do to change things.
Just to, kind of returning to the one of the key theme of this program, which is innovation and entrepreneurship. Do you have any kind of comments about what are the important traits? I think you already mentioned some of them when you give advice to young Asians from the cultural perspective, but from the entrepreneurship perspective of growing next generation entrepreneurs, what are some of the advices you think it's important actually?
So one, I would say fundamentally that a single person cannot do it all.
This kind of collaborative approach is crucial.
It's important to be very choosy about whom you select as your core team, people, and they don't all have to be culturally similar or anything of that nature. In fact, it's better to have a contrarian person who's very different. That diversity helps. Diversity helps in situations because the entrepreneurial ride is fraught with peril. There is so much, it's very taxing, not just on the mind and body and the soul. And it also requires, on the one hand, you need this magnificent obsession on what you want to do. On the same point, you have to counter that or balance that with being receptive to both guidance. You can choose not to follow the guidance, but at least be receptive and have swagger, but not to the point where you believe you know it all and you don't need anybody. You can, it's me against the world. No, it's me with the world and me for the world. The prepositions had to be the right prepositions. So I would say that choice of the team, and then also it would be that being agile and flexible to pivot if you see that the winds are blowing differently, right? Not holding on. On the one hand, you want to be obsessive about your cause or what you believe in. However, when you see sufficient information to the contrary, you need to make some hard decisions, right? And at that point, you can't let your ego get in the way, like, oh, I'm going to swallow you have to swallow your pride at that point. So you have to be humble. I know this sounds really awkward, but you have to have swagger and humble. You need swagger with the VC community, the venture capitalists and all, because otherwise they'll chew you up, right? And they will steal your stuff and they'll replace you at a moment's notice, because they're only interested in 10xing or 100xing their investment. They really don't care about you or your technology or your product. That's all just a means to an end, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So And the other thing I would say also is um, not to be shy about asking for help. Right? And people are willing to help. Many times there's this myth thing that, oh, only if that because person is an investor, an angel investor, smart investor, they will help. No. I mean, help can be different ways. It's not always monetary investment. It is even just moral support.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then in the whole passion about being entrepreneurial and all that, you can't let your family or loved ones behind. You can't be so obsessed with it that you leave roadkill, right? Uh, in fact, one of the several of the situations I've been in, I've been asked, "Hey, Vinod, what's your measure of success?" Usually the answer is, "Oh, you have a great performance, you have a great exit, you have everything products come out either on or ahead of schedule. There's a lot of acceptance of the product, and you didn't overspend, and you're highly profitable." For me, that's par for the course. What really matters is, let's say if three of us form a team and we have great success, the key metric for our success is if we want to work together again.